I'm sorry, Coach. Welcome to the Coaches Chat presented by Complete Quarterback. I'm your host, John Sirenitas. This week, I'm joined by Cody Giampa, head football coach at Bay Path Regional Vocational High School. Coach Giampa, how are you this evening?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for taking the time. And, I had put out a tweet earlier tonight. We had a previous guest set up. You were on my list of coaches I wanted to. It's interesting that you reached out because you were on my list of coaches that I wanted to reach out to in May. You beat me to the punch. So I put out a tweet saying, hey, if you're available, you want to come on, you're a head football coach. You were the first one to answer the call. So instead of having you on next month, I got you on now. Thank you for taking the time, Coach.
Like I said, thanks for having me. I've watched a bunch of these, so I'm excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you, and let's just jump right into things here, and let's talk about your coaching career. Tell me a little bit about how you got into coaching and how you ended up the head football coach at Bay Path.
So I grew up around football. I've been going to football games since before I was born, as my mom likes to tell me. I played football, up until college, and then I played 1 year at Assumption, and then I went to as soon as I was done with that, I went to coach at Auburn High School, and then I worked there for a while. Then went to Southbridge High School, back to Auburn High School, and then I'm a teacher at Bay Path. So finally, my second year at Bay Path, I was able to earn my way on the staff, and then a few years ago, I took over as head coach.
And talk a little bit about Bay Path for those out there watching that might not be familiar with the school. Talk a little bit about the school, where it's located, and what division you guys are in.
So we're in Division 6. We're a vocational school in Charlton, Massachusetts, which is right in the central Massachusetts. It's the southern border, right up against Connecticut. So we're, like I said, we're a vocational school. We serve about 7 different towns. It's a phenomenal place to work and to go to school. So I'm incredibly lucky to be where I'm at. The support is awesome. There's a real excitement about football and athletics in general. And the type of kid that we get there they're hardworking kids. They're great kids who don't mind working hard. They're, for football, they're physical, which always makes the job a little bit easier. So it's a great place to be, a great place to coach, really rewarding.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I got my start coaching at Blue Hills Regional High School in Canton, and it's interesting what people's perception of vocational schools is. I think that they have a little bit of a different perception of what the school is and the type of student athlete that attends these schools. But from what I remember from my experience, and now I'm going back to the early to mid 90s, but I loved coaching there because I think, to your point, I think you do get a different kind of kid there, but I think in a very good way. Right. And what I mean by that is you get kids that know what they want. They know what they want to do when they graduate. There's no trying to figure it out freshman, sophomore, junior year, and then you kind of go from there. When you're coaching a kid at a vocational school, they're smart, they're motivated, they're driven, and they know what they want to do. And I think that you can take a lot of that, because I think that there is a certain level of maturity that goes with that. I think you could take a lot of that and apply it into your program, whether it be football or another sport.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I mean, our kids are, I brag about our kids all the time because I look at what they do. And I went to a traditional high school, and I couldn't do, just frankly, I mean, what they do is really impressive, especially they get to their junior, senior year where they're working all day. And we're not, they're not working at a McDonald's or, I mean, they're working all day. And these kids are waking up at 6 a.m., going to a job site, working, or, a restaurant, all sorts of different vocations. And then they're sacrificing money to come back and to play football. So, to me, it's a privilege to be able to work, with those kind of kids, and it means something to them. And it means something to them. I tell this story a lot. I had 2 kids who graduated last year, who we would open the weight room, and they came to me, and they're like in the summer, and they would come to me and they'd say, Coach, we can't I can't get there at 6:30. And usually when you get the I can't get there at 6:30, it's
Right.
because they want to sleep.
Right.
But they start work at 6. So they're like, can you open it at 5? And so that, and I said, absolutely. I was like, again, those are the type of kids that you want to be around. So they would come, they'd lift from 5 to 5:45, then they'd get changed. And one of them was an electrician and one of them was a plumber. So again, these kids are then going and working real jobs. And then they would come back, we did a passing league. So they would come back and do that later on in the day. So yeah, it's awesome to work with that kind of kid. They're down to earth, blue collar kids who some of them want to go on to college, which is great. And what's really exciting too is sometimes football opens up the opportunity to go to college that they didn't think that they even wanted or had. So that's a really rewarding part of our job too.
Yeah, it really is. And I think that, going back to what the perception of Voc Tech schools is that they're simply going to go off into the real world and work. Not every kid at a Voc Tech school does that. To your point, some of them do want to go to college. Some of them still want to enter the military and serve their country.
Right.
That there's a variety of students at a Voc Tech school, and I think you hit the nail on the head, Coach Champ, about how it truly is a different experience. If it's a week where they're focusing on their job, they're working, especially by the time they're juniors and seniors, they're working. And then they're stopping that to come to practice, and then they're going home and doing homework. So in many ways, yeah, it's like a regular kids' day, but in so many other ways, it's uniquely different. Now, how many years have you been the head football coach at Bay Path Regional?
So my first year was the COVID half year. So 2020. So this upcoming season will, I think, be my 5th year.
And when you think about from when you took over, you took over at arguably the toughest time to take over a program in the history of the game. When you took over then, what was at the core of your philosophy? You get the job, you get that opportunity. I've been a head coach. I know it's exciting, but then there's also a lot of work ahead.
Right.
When you took the job, what was one of the first things you did from a philosophical standpoint to put your stamp on the program?
I made a lot of mistakes early on because to your point,
I know the feeling.
You have this idea of what it's going to be like, and it's very easy as an assistant coach to sit there and think, I have all the answers. And I've been incredibly fortunate to be around great coaches, my whole life, and be around, really good programs for most of my life. And so you have this idea of what it looks like and what it's going to be like. And yeah, I made a lot of mistakes the first 2 years where I was, way too fancy, and it wasn't honest to me either. I found myself coaching a style of football that I wasn't really comfortable with for the sake of, different things. And then really the last, I would say 2 years, we've really kind of gotten it back to like a style that I feel comfortable with, where we want to be better at the basics than anybody else. We want to be a simple, violent, aggressive team that executes our jobs really, really well, not put too much on the kids' plate, just get the kids to understand what we're trying to do, give them a job to execute, and make sure that we do it so many times that they can execute it whenever we ask them to. And when I got back to that, which was always kind of, I think, much more true to myself than I was at the beginning. It's been a lot more successful.
And with that, I ask coaches this question all the time, and it's about the kids. Yeah. And the question is, have the kids changed? Because you hear so many people say the kids have changed today. They're not what they used to be. There's so many pitfalls out there for them now, social media, video games, all of these other things. Do you think kids have changed, or in your experience in education and coaching, kids are the same, but maybe times have changed?
I think kids are the same. Kids want to be successful. Kids want to be in a structure where they can be successful. I think older people tend to have this view of, they look at things as when they were growing up in a much different way than maybe it actually was. Or I think kids crave discipline. I think they crave structure. And they want to be in situations where they're successful. And kids today, the only thing that I think's changed is kids just have so many more options today. So, it's not like if you don't like it, you just got to deal with it. Now they don't have to deal with it. There's so many other things pulling them in so many other directions
Right.
that
Yep.
if they don't like it, they can do other things. And I think sometimes that comes from above them too. I think it's really, really easy to point at the kids and go, the kids have changed. And kids are kids. They've been the same. I think they've been the same kids as when I was a kid. I think they're the same as when, my parents were kids. I think the structures above them have changed a little bit. And I think that's a more uncomfortable conversation for people to have. I think kids want to be successful. And when you talk to other coaches and you talk to successful programs and you talk to successful coaches, the roots of what everybody does are kind of the same thing. It might look different on a Friday night, but the roots of what everybody does, it's the structure, it's the discipline, it's the chance to be successful. When a kid knows that if I put in everything I have and I'm the best person for the job, then that's going to be rewarded. I think that's, to me, that's where things kind of are the same as they've always been. That's what kids want.
It's interesting that you say that they want structure and they want discipline, because I do think that gets lost on people that aren't in the profession anymore. I've been fortunate to teach for 17 years. I was a head football coach. I've been a dean. I'm a vice principal now. And, I agree. I think that kids do want structure and discipline. The only thing I'll say is I think there's a lot more kids that don't want it than we used to have. But I still think by and large, the majority of kids still want it because they may not get it anywhere else, right? They may not get it at home. You might be the only one that provides that environment for them. And when they're in that environment, they flourish.
Right. Yeah. And I think, and like you just said, I think kids want the opportunity to flourish. And I think if you can provide, that for them, they'll do whatever you want. I've seen, you as a vice principal, you've seen it. A kid might be one way for one person and then a completely different way for another person. And there's no magic in that. It's not they respect you because of this or that. It's a lot of times those people who have success are doing things that are very similar to each other. Again, it might look different, but the core philosophies of, we do things a certain way. You can be yourself, right? Because I do think, I'm pretty, in terms of coaching, I'm pretty lenient about, letting kids be themselves. And, if they want to do a certain thing or, whatever, that we don't get hung up on the little things, but there's major, pillars of what we believe in that they're not going to go outside of that. And again, as long as you're fair and as long as you're giving kids the opportunity to, you're not harping on things that ultimately don't matter, I think kids understand that and they'll respect that.
No, I agree wholeheartedly. You are watching the Coaches Chat presented by Complete Quarterback. I'm your host, John Serenitas. This week, I'm joined by Cody Giampa, head football coach at Bay Path Regional Vocational High School. And Coach Giampa, obviously, just going back to coaching at a vocational school, do you guys have to be off the field by a certain time? Is there certain things that you and your staff need to work around in order to accommodate the kids' schedules?
No, never. We believe we're pretty tight with the way we practice. I'm a firm believer in we get 2 hours, and then after that, I think you kind of wasting everybody's time. But the only thing we're a little flexible on is when we start. So we start at our school gets out at 2:30. We start at 3:00, and we do have kids, like I said, who are working. So if a kid gets there at 3:05. Those are little things like, as long as they're, not showing up randomly at 3:05, but as long as they're, talking to me or talking to a coach and letting us know, like, hey, I have a job. Like, we had a kid this year who was doing, we're in Charlton, and his job site was in Boston. And he would get out at 2:00, and he would tell me, Coach, I'm gonna be there. I promise. Like, I'm gonna be there. The work ethic was never a question. The kid was incredibly hardworking. He said the only thing is, depending on traffic, I might be a little late. And so those are the things you got to be a little bit flexible with. But again, as long as there's a give and take, right? So as long as when you get to practice, the work ethic is there. You're doing everything you're supposed to be doing. You're busting your tail for the full 2 hours that we're asking you to. If you miss stretching, those are little things
Not
like
the end of the world.
exactly right. And that's, for some coaches that is hard because that is difficult for some coaches, but it's also the reality. I would much rather continue to provide that kid an opportunity to play than say, look, you can't be here for 3 o'clock. I don't know what to tell you. You can't be here. So, because to me, going back to what we talked about earlier, those are one of those you're harping on a little thing. That kid to me he's showing a lot more dedication than the kid who gets out of school at 2:30, goes to the locker room, gets changed, and now he's on the field ready for practice. That kid's leaving his job site wherever he is in Boston, driving all the way back to Charlton to practice. Like that's dedication. It just looks a little bit different. So you got to be a little bit flexible with stuff like that. But other than that, no, we practice from 3 to 5 and pretty much we have full. We don't really have many restraints outside of that.
Coming back to your philosophy, I do want to talk about your on the field football philosophy here, offensively, defensively. You talked about earlier keeping it simple and not overburdening the kids with stuff. How would you categorize your philosophy offensively and defensively?
So offensively, we're an under center wing T team. We're an old school under center wing T. Tubby Raymond right out of the blue book.
I love it.
Yeah, we call some things different things, but we're gonna run trap and sweep, waggle, down, belly, stuff like that. That's our philosophy offensively. Run the ball, control the clock, and then defensively we do a whole bunch of different stuff. But again, it's simple. It's run to the football, be violent when you get there, show up with some bad intentions, and then let the rest take care of itself. But those are the two things we kind of believe in. Offensively, running the ball, being physical, out angling people, outnumbering people, and then defensively just being violent and being somebody that the other team doesn't want to run to or pass toward.
And it is hard. It's hard to believe that in this day and age of the spread offense, I remember in the 90s, everyone was doing what you're doing, right? Everybody wanted to run the wing T because not everybody had the big physical offensive line. Not everybody had the big fullback that couldn't run the eye. Then you had those outliers that were running the run and shoot, and they were trying to spread it out and throw the ball. But the majority of high school coaches were running the wing T because it allowed you to get multiple backs on the field, get your best players on the field. It allowed you to run misdirection and do all of these things. And here we are in 2024, and it's refreshing to hear a coach say that, yeah, I'm running the old Delaware wing T, Tubby Raymond, Coach Perry, down block, pull and kick, buck sweep, pull both guards. It's great to see because we talk about running the football in New England and the importance of it, especially when you get to late October, early November and beyond.
Right.
But you're placing a premium on it just by running what you're running.
Right. Yeah. We're not, I don't think I'm smarter than, too many coaches, and I'm younger than a lot of coaches. So I don't have the experience so I'm not trying to outthink anybody. And I tell our kids all the time, if you're relying on me to outthink people, we're going to probably run issues. And we, like I said, we just want to be better at the basics than other people. We want to identify the kids that we have, put them in the best position that we can for them to succeed. And I believe, again, like you were saying, the wing T provides a ton of positions for kids to succeed. You don't need anybody. And I'm not saying we don't have anybody. We have some really good players, but you don't need, the stud quarterback. You don't need the receiver who can fly. You don't need the running back. You just need, a group of kids who buy into what you're doing, who want to do it physically, and who are going to execute at a high level the different things that you're going to want to do. And to your point, I think, in football coming full circle, I think you have an advantage sometimes running the wing T because a lot of times defenses don't see it very often. And it's a hard defense to prepare for in a week. You can put the scout cards up, but there's a certain rhythm and flow to the offense that they're not going to see until they play you. and it gives your kids the best opportunity, I think. For our situation, I'm certainly not, a lot of coaches do things a lot of different ways and are incredibly successful in the way that they do them. But for our situation, I think it gives our kids the best opportunity to have as much success as possible. So that's why we do it. Again, it's not, I didn't know the offense until, 2-3 years ago. I reached out to a bunch of different coaches. I used my dad's contacts to find a bunch of different coaches who had been running it in the 80s and 90s. And I just shut my mouth and I listened, and which isn't always easy for me to do, but I just listened to what they had to say and how they did things. And I just, ran, like I said, I bought the book, found it on eBay. I bought the Tubby Raymond book, and that's what we do. And then, as you go, you add your own stuff to it. But we make sure that, like I said, we want to be better at the basics than anybody else. So we make sure we know what we're doing. We know how to run trap, sweep, and we feel like we can run those against just about anybody.
And please tell me that you really went all in on the wing tee, and you bought the roll and you roll it out with the offensive line on the strip, and you run all your plays on there.
So we have one strip, and then we have fire hoses. The coach that helped us install it told us don't buy, we had a really fancy strip with that was made by some football company, and he took one look at that and he was like, yeah, you don't need that. And he came back the next day. His name is Joe Measure. He coached at Narragansett forever. He came back the next day and he had fire hoses that we just spray painted on the different things. And that's how we do our backfield technique. We do all those things. Like I said, we're not inventing anything. We follow what other people have done before, and we just try to execute it at a really high level.
Yeah. Well, it's great to hear, man. And you mentioned your dad. Of course, your dad is on the staff. You get to coach with him. Talk a little bit about your dad and what it's like coaching with him.
Well, it's great. His name's Dana Giampa. He coached at Auburn for a really long time. He coached at Millbury. He's coached at Narragansett, Fitchburg. He coached up at Assumption for a little bit. It's been great. It's a great opportunity again to learn. As a young coach, I do what I can to surround myself with people who know a lot more than I do, and I just try to, try not to be as stubborn all the time, and just try to absorb as much as I can. And he's a guy who's been doing it for a long time at a really high level. So when he agreed to help me out, that was great, and it's been really fun.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's just fantastic getting to share this experience with him, and like you said, to be around him, to learn from him, but also, to also learn on the fly in a sense, and have someone there that can give you some of that constructive criticism and help you if, in fact, you make a decision that you later on wish you did something else with.
Yeah, and that's like I said, I think as a young coach, that's the biggest thing, is having people around you who have been around, who've done things successfully, and who can tell you, because we have ideas all the time, and today we have there's so many resources. You go to clinics and you go to, watching spring practices. You're on YouTube all the time looking at stuff, and you get a million different ideas. It's awesome to have some people that you trust who can pull you back and be like, that is a good idea, but I don't know if that's necessarily for us, because you can't do it all, right? You gotta kind of be good at what you do. So it is a nice advantage.
All right, Coach, and final question here for you tonight. Just looking ahead to the upcoming season for Bay Path, what do we need to know about who's returning? Maybe some off-season, preseason expectations for the 2024 team.
We have a lot of kids returning. We have our running backs, both running backs. We had a Caden Brochu last year. He ran for 2,400 yards. He's back for his senior year. Braden Downs is another running back who ran for over 1,000 yards last year. I think he had over 1,200 yards last year. He's coming back. Corey Scoville, our quarterback, he's coming back, and we have on the offensive line, we have 4 out of the 5 of them all coming back as seniors. So we're very excited for this group. They're a hardworking group. On defense, we had the Central Mass Division 6 MVP defensively in Matt Chatterton. We have Chase and Hunter Davis, who are both coming back. So who are both linebackers for us. So we're very excited about the team that we have, and the work that they've put in so far this offseason has been awesome. They're coming to the weight room all the time. That's a huge staple of what we do is making sure that they're in the weight room, and they've now bought into that completely because we've been doing it for a couple of years. So they've been in the weight room, they've been working hard. So we're excited. We have a really tough schedule this year. We open up against Auburn, then we play Leicester, and then Clinton, who are three really
they'll have a good group back.
Yeah, absolutely. And great coaching staff there. Their kids are fantastic. Same with Leicester and Auburn. Both of those teams are perennial powers. But we're excited about the chance to compete. We're excited about having a tough schedule so that we can, see how good we are, and see, or vice versa. So it's competition is awesome, and I think we have a great group of kids that are excited to compete. So the opportunity of next season is something that we're really looking forward to.
Yeah, you have a great group back, and you have a group back that's certainly capable of making a run in D6. And obviously you feel the same way because you're challenging them with a very good schedule, which I think is going to pay off later on the season down the road. But Coach Giampa, I want to say thank you for taking the time, my friend. Really appreciate it. Like I said, I've been looking forward to having you on the show, and I'm glad that when our plans changed, you were able to step up and say, you know what, let's do it now. Let's talk some ball now. And I also want to say I appreciate you for running the traditional wing tee. When I started coaching 30 years ago, I coached in the Delaware wing tee. And while I've changed through the years, it's still I still have a soft spot for it. I love that offense. And you know what? I still think if you can run 5 or 6 good running plays, some waggle, some keep pass, that's more than enough in today's game to help you win football games. So it's great to see someone still running the old school Delaware wing tee.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you guys for all you do covering Massachusetts high school football. It's awesome to have people that care about the sport, who are invested in the sport, and who promote the kids that play it. Because I think we have some of the best kids around in this state. So to have a platform like you guys is really awesome.
No, we appreciate it, Coach Giampa, and those words mean a lot. It's a labor of love. We love what we do, and we're fortunate that we have a great coaching community, a great parent and player community that support what we do. And we felt when we started this thing, I started it in 2019, and then my partners came on, kind of felt there was a vacuum there that we could fill it. And you know what? Why not do football year round? We don't need to move on to another season. All we have is one season, and we just make it 365. But thanks for coming on, brother. Greatly appreciate it, and we look forward to covering you guys this season.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, that'll do it for this week's episode of the Coaches Chat. I want to thank Coach Cody Giampa from Bay Path Regional Vocational High School for joining us this week. For Coach Giampa, I'm John Cernitas. Till next week. Peace.